And hello, everybody. Welcome to class. We are at the end of August, so that is more appropriate than it has been in the past for a while, right? Coming in and talking about school, talking about class, learning things or hearing things from a different perspective. This is kind of how we do it, where I am anyway. So there was just this recent bit of friction, let's just say, between Montrezl Harrell and Luka Doncic in the NBA. So I want to talk to you about this because what you have is the reaction that we have to analyze, as always. Because remember, the reaction is the thing that oftentimes is the thing that you need to look at. And so for those of you that aren't familiar with the instance, Montrezl Harrell is a backup forward with the Los Angeles Clippers, and Doncic is an emerging super duper star, starting small forward for the Dallas Mavericks. So Doncic is white from Eastern Europe. Harrell is a black man from the United States. So what happened was in the playoffs, Harrell called Luka Doncic a bitch-ass white boy. I'm in a secret location, by the way, in the Bronx, and the windows are open in the studio. So, of course, this starts right when I'm chatting. So we're going to enjoy the background music. I'm not even going to restart this. We're just going to watch the ambulance go by. Okay. Well, it adds a little bit of authenticity to the lesson, doesn't it? So, anyway, so you have Harrell calling Doncic a bitch-ass white boy. Pretty rough, right? It's not supposed to be that way. Not too long after that, I don't know exactly the time frame. It might have been the next game. It might have been afterward directly, but Harrell apologized for the comment. Harrell is an emotional forward coming off the bench. I like his game a lot. He's one of these blue-collar, hard-hat guys who goes in, plays an emotional man's game in the lane, scores from up close, grabs offensive rebounds, does the dirty work you love. If you play basketball, you love playing with guys like that. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. I really can't. I'm not tall enough. I'm not rugged enough. My silky jumper, well, let's just say it speaks for itself. So you have this, it goes on. So this event happens. Harrell apologizes. The next game, Luka Doncic puts on one of the most incredible performances in NBA playoff history. Triple-double, 40-plus points. I think he had 16 or 17 rebounds, 13 assists. That's not easy to do. It shows that player, any player who can do triple-doubles like that, is a gifted, talented, top of the pyramid, one of the top 5 best players in the world to be able to pull that off. So then you have the reaction to this. And I'm talking to you because I was listening to Clay Travis on Outkick, and he's right. He pointed out the obvious double standard. His argument is correct. You have a ridiculous double standard where if Luka had said something like that to Harrell, there would be Doncic probably would be suspended for the rest of the playoffs. There would be people holding up signs. People would be talking about white privilege and slavery. They'd all of a sudden be talking about historical events they know nothing about, like the Jim Crow South. The ahistorical American would start talking about lunch counters. I mean, all the usual grifters would come out of the woodwork, showing that this guy from Eastern Europe is representative of America's evil, racist, terrible past. You could write it in stone. Everybody listening to this knows it. That's how it would go. Clay Travis and Jason Whitlock have pointed it out correctly. They are right. There is an insane double standard going on here. Harrell apologizes, and the announcers don't talk much about it, and it seems like it's over. Now, Clay Travis and Whitlock being good marketers and capitalists, I tip my hat to them, have a t-shirt says, it's in the Mavericks colors, in their kind of style, says bitch ass white boy. That's pretty funny. I in my younger days, I probably would have impulse purchased one of those for myself. I'm a little bit older than that now, so I'm not going to be walking around in a Mavericks blue t-shirt that says bitch ass white boy. So, but the reaction is that the point of this lesson is that reaction is exactly what they want. And what I mean by that is the press, the corporate press, knows that there is a ridiculous double standard. ESPN, Fox Sports, all the shows, First Take, Speak for Yourself, all of these sports shows, they all know that there is a ridiculous, insane, and obvious double standard. And that's why they're not saying anything. Because if they were equal in their reaction, if the sports talking heads went crazy and went up and said, Montrezl Harrell, you're a racist, you need to go to camp and get re-educated, you're a throwback Neanderthal, we don't talk like that anymore. If they said that, that would be consistent. And they can't have that. And that's my point. They're not going to be consistent because if they were, then they cannot divide you. They can't divide us. They can't divide me. They can't divide the group. They can't keep the constant argument, the constant division in play. So they don't. If you're angry and you see this, and you see the media, corporate media doing its thing, and the corporate media it's just as bad in sports. CNN, which is a joke of an organization. ESPN is just as bad. ESPN is a clownish outfit that regular people just don't watch it anymore. Go look at their ratings. So, it's almost like, people see the non-reaction, I should say, from sports corporate media on this, and are angry. Like, look at the double standard. Look. They're not pointing out Montrezl Harrell's racist comment. He should be canceled. They know this. They know that it's a ridiculous double standard, and they have to maintain that. I actually think they like playing this game. I know the people above them at the super, ultra, uber top of this corporate pyramid. I mean, this is kind of the plan. It's not like they sit around in a dark room smoking cigars with bags of money, with the dollar sign on the bag saying, how are we going to snooker the herd? There are probably meetings like that with that general tendency, but now it's just baked into the cake. You have to divide. You have to divide because if you're going to conquer, you can't have regular people being independently minded, thoughtful, recognizing what's going on right in front of them. So they have these insane double standards that are ridiculous. And my point on this is, you hear first of all, what Montrezl Harrell said is kind of a playground comment in the sense that, if you've played basketball in the city, it's going to be a black dominated game and you're going to hear some stuff. Everybody's snapping on everybody else. So, when I played pickup basketball in the field house at University of Iowa, or I would go out to Orchard Beach, down Pelham Parkway, play outside at basketball games at Orchard Beach. Yeah, your man would do that. Or even just out in the park. You hear crazy stuff. So my tactic when I played at the Bronx House on Tuesdays and Thursday nights was to just be quiet. Like, I didn't talk. I would just, let my feathery jumper do the talking. And it worked. I wasn't the best player on the court, but I could more than hold my own. And at one point, someone called me the silent assassin, which I actually, to this day, still remember. That's probably 20, 22 years ago. So that's playground stuff, and it's really not that big of a deal. And we saw a decade of this kind of thing just talked about openly in a consistent manner in the 1980s. When Larry Bird came into the league in 1979, I think it was Caldwell Jones had mentioned that, oh God, he goes to the Celtics. All right, here we go. We got the white kid here, and he's being propped up as the great white hope, and he's going to be like everybody else. He's going to be the great white nope, and we've got to deal with this kind of nonsense. And I think he said after one practice, it was obvious that white dude could play. And that's Larry Bird we're talking about. And I hated Larry Bird as a Knicks fan growing up in the 80s. I couldn't stand Larry Bird. Even though he was a white forward playing for the Boston Celtics. Hated the Celtics. And so, that people called Bird all kinds of names. I think it was Spike Lee said he was overrated. If he were black, he'd be just another player. Like, people talked in a consistent, direct way. Stuff that now would be seen as, so racist, let's cancel, all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to give you ways to fix it. A couple of things very quickly, and then we're finished. First of all, on matters like this, all matters racial, ignore social media. The bots and weirdos on Twitter, some of them on Instagram. Twitter's the worst. Even I'm not on Twitter anymore. I got kicked off. But, I mean, you hear about, like, the blue checkmark brigade canceling people on Twitter. Why people don't ignore these people is beyond me. Why anyone gives them credibility, to me, makes no sense at all. Ignore blue check Twitter. It'll be a good day when somebody like the eccentric billionaire who runs Red Bull just does what he feels like and ignores blue check Twitter. And, some of these people in sports could do the same thing. They could very easily ignore blue check Twitter. All they have to do is ignore them. So if, someone says something that is politically incorrect, then the people who run the outfit, let's say someone in a sports team says something racist, they're like, yeah, I talked to him, he suspended a game, and we're going to go about our lives. And then blue check Twitter can rail and scream and ignore them. So that's one thing. And it'll be a good day when that happens regularly. The other thing is to realize that before the internet and social media, people talked about these things openly and directly among themselves. So you do the same thing. Talk to people. Call them up. Talk to them in person. Oh, can you believe that? And I guarantee you, this Doncic Harrell situation would be talked about. Oh man, look at that. Doncic Luka went berserk on the Clippers. And Paul George disappeared. He took the night off. And people just talked sports basketball normally, like it was in the 80s. You think the race thing didn't come up then? Of course it did. And people talked about it, and they forged intellectual firepower by talking and arguing and stuff in person all the time on this. You think Look, let me leave you with this as an example to follow. There were people who were Lakers fans, and they would come to the argument and they would try to say bad things and denigrate Larry Bird. And sometimes they'd call him soft. They'd call him, kind of a softer, kind of white forward. I mean, the race stuff came up. But you've really got to be brazen to try to come into an argument in 1984, 1986, with someone else, Lakers v. Celtics, and try to explain why Larry Bird is whack. That's a sports argument. It's an argument. It's a bad one. But if you're going to argue that Bird is weak, once you point out the obvious, that Bird is a white forward and is a white person, you better show up with more than that. And people did. And there were great I mean, even as a young teacher in the late 90s, the guys would get together and argue pro basketball. And I would, of course, jump in and say my piece. And it was a regular argument among regular people. So, this Montrezl, Harrell, Luka Doncic stuff is normal stuff. It's the reaction that they're using, that they're managing and organizing and perpetrating so that regular people will scream and bicker and be divided. So I know it's kind of a corny message, but the baseline is the arguments and the chatter you have with your friends is normal and regular. Do that. Forget the social media nonsense. Forget the corporate media. Pretend corporate media doesn't exist. And when you do stuff like that, and you realize and can watch the corporate media reaction, then you'll have made a leap. Then you'll be like me and others, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see what they did. I get it. They're doing this double standard thing intentionally. Oh, okay, all right. And then things become much more easy to navigate. And you won't be anxious and nervous. Look at the double standard. No. That's their job. They're going to have a double standard always. They're going to do that forever. Their job is not to inform you. Their job is to get people angry or scared or anxious. And they do it in sports just like they do it in regular news. And this is just one small example. All right? See you at the next class. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. And school is almost back in session.